The Amateur, starring Rami Malek, Laurence Fishburne, and Holt McCallany, is a 2025 spy action thriller about an IT specialist turned reluctant avenger. At 2 hours and 2 minutes, it promises suspense, grief, and espionage intrigue. But if you don't want to commit that time, don't worry, I watched The Amateur so you don't have to. By the by, I'm the movie guy and let's start this video. The film opens on Charles Heller, played by Rami Malek, a decryption officer in the CIA's analysis department. From the first scene, his relationship with his wife Sarah is warm and affectionate, which makes it clear that tragedy is looming. Sarah is leaving for London, and the way the film lingers on their goodbye all but guarantees that something will soon go wrong. At work, Heller receives an encrypted file from McCallany, a shadowy figure he's been tracking for 5 years. Using CIA resources, he decrypts it with ease, uncovering two conflicting mission reports about the same bombing. One blames a suicide bomber, the other reveals it was actually a US drone strike. Both reports are signed off by CIA Director Moore, played by Holt McCallany. Heller is shaken but doesn't act immediately. The next morning, Moore himself shows up in his office. At first, it feels like Heller is about to be reprimanded or worse. Instead, Moore delivers devastating news. Sarah has been killed in London. The evidence is shaky, but grief consumes Heller. In the aftermath, Sarah's belongings arrive, including a puzzle she has bought as a gift. Grieving but restless, Heller turns to what he knows best: data. He hacks into surveillance systems across London, piecing together her final moments. With forensic precision, he reconstructs the attack, identifying suspects, tracking locations, and even discovering that Sarah was held at gunpoint on the street. When Heller confronts Moore, he claims he wants to dismantle the entire terror network. But for Heller, this is personal. Justice for Sarah cannot wait for political maneuvering. When Moore downplays the urgency, Heller blackmails him, threatening to leak the incriminating drone strike data unless he's allowed to pursue revenge. Moore gives in, though clearly planning to eliminate Heller at the first opportunity. That's the end of Act 1, and so far, it's by-the-numbers revenge setup. Heller's digital detective work is clever, but nothing else stands out. Even Malek's performance at the moment feels subdued. It's familiar territory, and not in a good way. Moore arranges for Heller to undergo training under Colonel Henderson, played by Laurence Fishburne, a hardened operative who quickly sees through him. Heller fails basic combat drills and can barely handle a firearm, though he demonstrates talent in improvisation, like building explosives from everyday materials. Henderson dismisses him. Heller isn't a killer, and when the time comes, he'll freeze. Meanwhile, Moore's team tracks down Heller's failsafe. He had hidden a CD with the classified data inside a jukebox at his local bar, but the agency quickly discovers it. His bluff is exposed. He never had an external copy, and with his leverage gone, Moore orders his elimination. Henderson is called to finish the job, but Heller vanishes before he can. On the run, Heller heads to France, pursuing Gretchen Frank, a woman linked to the suspects. Using classic hacker tricks and a bit of awkward lockpicking, complete with a YouTube tutorial gag, he breaks into her apartment but fails to find evidence, only a gun. When Gretchen returns, he freezes, unable to act. Henderson was right, Heller lacks the killer instinct. The next day, however, comes the film's first memorable sequence. Knowing Gretchen is severely allergic to pollen, Heller engineers a cruel interrogation. At her allergy clinic, he contaminates her sterile room with crushed flowers, forcing her into respiratory distress. As she suffocates, Heller interrogates, but when death becomes imminent, he panics and lets her out. A chase ensues, only for Gretchen to be struck and killed instantly by a passing van. Heller seizes her phone and flees to Marseille. There, Henderson corners him in a nightclub. The sequence leans into spy thriller cliches. Henderson always seems to appear exactly where Heller runs, moving slowly and omnipresent. Heller escapes by planting a bomb in the toilet, slipping away in the chaos. At this midpoint, the movie briefly sparks to life. Heller is convincingly out of his depth. He's no assassin, constantly haunted by visions of Sarah, physically weaker than his enemies, but forced to rely on his intellect. It's a fresh angle, if only the film sustains it. With few options left, Heller seeks out McCallany. He travels to Turkey, somehow evading international authorities despite being a wanted man. McCallany turns out to be a woman, using her late husband's identity, and she agrees to help track the remaining suspects. Meanwhile, Moore's corruption begins to unravel. The CIA director suspects him of running illegal black ops, sending loyal agents to investigate. This subplot runs parallel to Heller's hunt. The next target, Mishka, is located in Madrid. Heller learns that Mishka is a wealthy swimmer who books rooftop pools for private sessions. In one of the film's most inventive sequences, Heller sabotages the pool structure. As Mishka swims across the glass-bottom span between two skyscrapers, the pool ruptures, plunging him to his death. It's a clever kill, brain over brawn, and one of the few highlights. But Henderson arrives again, tracking Heller through Madrid. The two clash, another CIA agent attacks Henderson, shoots him in the gut, but Henderson wins the scuffle, but it's enough time for Heller to flee. Soon after, Morse operatives discover Inqualine's safe house, despite her boasting about constantly relocating. Heller and Inqualine flee in a chaotic car chase marred by jarring edits. During the pursuit, Inqualine is fatally shot, leaving Heller alone once again. The attackers inexplicably retreat afterwards, granting him a reprieve. Armed with her intel, he continues on to Romania in search of the next suspect. By the end of Act 2, the pattern is clear. The film shines in short bursts, particularly the pollen torture and pool sabotage, but these flashes of creativity are buried under lazy convenience and contrived escapes. It's frustrating because the premise has promise, but the execution rarely follows through. In the final act, Heller attempts to mislead the CIA into thinking he's in Germany while secretly pursuing Sarah's true killer. He improvises an IED leash, forcing a suspect to guide him toward the mastermind. The lead points him to Russia, where he's eventually captured and brought aboard a ship. There, Heller finally confronts Sarah's murderer. The villain mocks him as incapable of killing up close, handing him a gun as a test. Instead of immediate revenge, Heller stumbles through dialogue, buying time. Then comes a laughable twist. Heller reveals he has hacked the ship remotely, steering it into Finnish waters where Interpol and the Finnish Navy are waiting. Rather than a cathartic showdown, the climax dissolves into anticlimax. Back in the US, the CIA director publicly denounces Moore, arresting him in front of the cameras, an implausible spectacle that plays more like political fantasy than espionage realism. Henderson, revealed to have survived, thanks Heller for exposing corruption. The film closes on Heller flying a plane, suggesting he has moved on from grief. But the ending is deeply unsatisfying. After all this anguish, the message seems to be revenge will heal you. The psychological weight built earlier simply evaporates. The Amateur may be one of the most infuriating recent movies. Nearly every major development depends on coincidence, characters found with implausible ease, authorities evaded without explanation, and supporting roles wasted. John Bernthal, for example, appears briefly in 2 scenes with no impact at all. Moore dominates Act 2 as the villain, only to vanish almost entirely from Act 3. The supposed final confrontation is devoid of tension, and the resolution lands with a thud. And yet, fragments of a stronger film peek through. Rami Malek is well suited to play an anxious, cerebral protagonist. The Poland scene and the collapsing pool sequence are genuinely inventive, showing what the movie could have been if it embraced the amateur spy concept fully. Heller is never physically imposing, never a one-man army, and those moments when he must rely solely on intellect are the most compelling. His grief-driven hallucinations of Sarah add texture too, at least until the finale abandons them. Ultimately, the Amateur squanders its potential. Instead of leaning into what makes its protagonist unique, it defaults to generic espionage beats and implausible twists. There was a smarter, sharper movie hidden inside this one, but what we got wasn't it. So what did you think of The Amateur? Let me know down in the comments, and while you are there, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, keep on watching movies, guys.